Hello there. My name is Ingjerd, and I would call myself a guide who loves to follow my clients' journeys. I love to see them win and also working through the challenges they have when they're growing. And you might say, what do you mean? Well, I mean when you're uncovering what you really want and maybe also uncovering that maybe you haven't been able to express who you are or apply for that job you want, or maybe you want to become an entrepreneur and this is an idea you're entertaining in your mind, but you don't fully step out because you are afraid of what people may think, or that they may judge you, or that you don't have everything. And you might think, oh, I need to have everything in place to start that business I want to start. And I want to let you know from my experience, I didn't have everything in order before I started it. I didn't even have a website. So I want you to know that you can do it. But you probably heard people say that before too. So when you hear that, I want you also to know that there are some things we have to uncover. Maybe some uncomfortable things, maybe from our childhood, because it's learned behavior that we never dare to step into what we want or apply for that job we want or speak up in a meeting if that's what we want. So when I had jobs, I never dared to speak up in meetings. I wanted to. I loved watching people present and see how good some of them were. Like they weren't even reading from the presentation almost, and they looked so free. And I so badly wanted to be like them. But inside, you know that voice that only you can hear? I was saying to myself, I will never be that good. That will never be me. I would love to, but I couldn't do that. I couldn't be as free and stand up in a meeting for over 100 people and speak. I would be so nervous. And where did this start? And as I share my story with you, I want you to go back and think about your story or things you have experienced. And I want you to find a pen and paper, or maybe you can just draw, or whatever works for you, do it. I won't tell you what's the right way. I just want to share that for me, writing it down, that works. Okay. So where did this all start? That I wanted to speak in meetings, but I was so nervous of the thought if someone would ask me to hold the presentation. And many people did, but I was like, no. And I would ask my leader or manager to do it instead, just at the moment, just before the presentation was going to be held. So when I was little, I was going to school for the first time. You know, when you start school here in Norway, it's, if I remember right, before you're 7. And I was so excited to start school. I had the outfit, the shoes, everything ready. And I felt like a princess. And also at this time, I also found a lot of music that I liked. I was a fan of a lot of music. And I also thought like, I should be a model too. And I was like seeing the world, and I was like, the world is my oyster. And I hope that's what you say. And I was like, I can be anything, I can do anything, I can have anything. You know, the mind of a child. And I was very excited. And the first day at school, I remember we took pictures and there was a photographer there. And I was posing, like already being in a model. And I remember the photographer was saying, "You're doing a great job." And I remember I was thinking, yeah, I am. This unstoppable confidence. And the more I went to school every day, I really liked it. And one day we got a book, a math book, and I was so excited. We were getting homework. And what I did is that I almost finished the book with all the homework in one day. And I showed my teacher. And then she said, "Ingjerd, you're not supposed to finish all your work right away. Take it away." And I remember I was like, oh. And I felt hurt. I didn't understand what was wrong with being eager to do work and wanted to get more work. But then I was like, I did something really wrong. And I felt on it for a long time that I'd done something really wrong. And as everything happens in school, some of you get friends and some of you don't. I was lucky at this time to get friends. And I thought I had a really good time in school. I remember I had a friend who were a friend with me for a week, and then she was friend with someone else. And I always wanted to be with her because she had a nice house and she had chocolate at home and she had rich parents. And I didn't feel like my parents were rich. Anyhow, some years ago, like 3 years, and one day I'm told to go into an office not far away from the school. My parents doesn't tell me why I have to go to this office. My teachers doesn't tell me why I have to go to this office. But I go. I'm still in the belief that I can become a star. I just know it. It's going to happen. And when I come to this office, walk in the door, there's a man who meets me. And he tells me, "We're going to do a lot of tests on you." He doesn't tell me why we're doing them, but he makes me do a lot of different things. And I am there for maybe an hour or something. And I remember the feeling of being there, not understanding why I'm here. And I feel a bit cold. I don't feel that this man is very warm towards me. And then after all the tests and everything, he's telling me, "I know what's wrong with you. You have dyslexia." And no more information for me what that is. And that just leaves me with okay, so there's something wrong with me. I don't know what it is, but it's something really bad, like almost something really dark. Instead of telling me that, "You know what, Ingjerd? You have been blessed with dyslexia, and there is a lot of entrepreneurs out in the world. Look at this list here, and look at everything they created. And there's going to come more of them out in the world. So don't you worry. This is your strength." No, that was not the message I got. So I went back to school that day, and I remember feeling empty looking at all the other students, feeling like I did not belong. And slowly, they started to take me out of class. And instead of learning what was going on in class, they were playing games with us. Like, I'm not kidding. They were playing different games. We were writing poems. We were walking around. And these people who took us out of the classroom didn't have any experience with people who were blessed by dyslexia, I will say. So what happened is that I fell so behind with what they were learning in the classroom. What I started to doing, number one, I started to put my hand in front of every time I was writing. And if you have done this, and you've been blessed by dyslexia like me, if you have done this, like you put your hand in front and then you write with the pen. Now I'm using the wrong hand. Here's the right. That was a habit. I started to protect myself. I started to speak less up in class because I was afraid people will discover this horrible thing that I didn't really understand but what was. But what I understood in my own mind and kind of made a decision to kind of say to myself is that I'm dumb and I have to hide who I am because something is clearly wrong with me. So I want you to think about this. Maybe you had a different experience in a different way. But this is how early we start ourselves to program ourselves. And after a while, I experienced something a child should not experience in a family. My grandfather did something that a grandfather should not do to a child. And I didn't tell anyone. I remember the day and how it happened. But from the dyslexia experience, I trained myself to hide what was going on because no one would understand. Now, that's a dark thing to happen. Now, as I grew older, what I learned to do is put things under the blanket or things and hide what was going on. And as I got older, I didn't think I could get a good job, but I would overperform, be in the office longer, be super happy, and fill it up with other things. And what I was so afraid of was that if someone would discover that I had dyslexia, I would be fired. So I would just be super nice, super caring, so that people wouldn't look at my writing. I want you to think about different things you have done in your life. And as I grew older, I managed to get a couple of good jobs, but I never dared to say my opinion about things or speaking up in meetings. I would always talk kind of behind people's back, but never kind of say something in a meeting if I did not agree. But there was a couple of things I was super good at. One of them were like English in speaking, not so good in writing, but speaking. And I would get jobs, international jobs, because I was very good at speaking. But still, I was always saying to myself, I'm never good enough. I will never amount to anything. One day they will kind of catch me, or someone will try to tear me down. And I was still having this hand in front. But I wanted to overperform. So when I got a marketing job one time in an oil and gas company, I thought I better work as hard as possible for people to see that I'm actually worth something. So I would work many hours, overperform, and deliver so much, because I wanted the approval of my manager, the top people in the company. Because success to me was, you can think about it as if someone likes your post or your video, or them like being proud of you, just one word. I would crave it so much, and that was what I was working after. But I never succeeded because I never allowed me to come through. I never allowed Ingjerd to be herself. It was almost like I have to hide. And I started also pretending that my life was more perfect than it was. And then one day in 2012, I experienced something that knocked me out. I got pregnant for the first time. And I always wanted to become pregnant when I was younger, like the end of 20s. Because I saw my sisters having children, and I thought that would be the answer of love. Like, if I just get a child, then I will be loved. And I will love myself more. That would be the approval of all approvals. And I had a miscarriage. And I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't be a perfectionist anymore. All I could do is just lay down. And it was very interesting because everything became very dark. Very dark. It's like I didn't have the energy to be. I didn't see the point of anything. And I didn't manage to pretend because I was broken at that time. Because I put on so many different coats of who I thought I was. And it didn't work anymore. So something had to give. So I was on a sick leave for 6 months. And strangely, that lesson didn't teach me to listen to myself. So what I said to myself was, okay, Ingjerd, you've been sick for 6 months. You get up. You pretend, you put a smile on your face, and you can cry when you get home, but you go out there. So I did. I started applying for jobs, and I got a job really fast. And I was really good at getting jobs and pretending that everything was fine. And I managed to do that for a couple of years. And then in 2000 and I believe 17, 18, I got fired from a job because of my attitude, because I wanted to over deliver. So I forgot to ask for approval from my manager to do things. And I didn't understand what was happening, why people were treating me like this. And my nervous system shut down. And I ended up on a sick leave. Was down for a little bit and applied for a job again. Got it. And then I told myself, you go back there, Ingjerd, and you just pretend and you over deliver. And I got the job, and it was a beautiful job and a beautiful company and beautiful people working there. But my performance wasn't there. For some things, it was there. But for some things, it wasn't there. Because I wasn't so good anymore at pretending. And then something happened. A new person came into that company and he started firing people out of no reason. And I was one of them, even though my manager wanted to keep me. But hey, I am so grateful that happened. And you will get to know that a little bit later, why. But at that time, I was like, screw that person. Sorry for swearing. But I was like, oh my God. But then I managed to get another job in another company. And it was just working there for a couple of months. So it wasn't a permanent job. But I remember I started to doubt everything. Like I was like, I thought this was going to be a great place to work, but there's so much control here. And from my manager, it's like, why do I write these emails if she wants to rewrite them? And I was like, ah. And by staying there, I was dying more and more inside. But then I made a decision when I stayed there to take some of my education, kind of change the grades I gotten from school. So I did that because I thought I had to do that to earn more. And that was a cool experience because that's on that journey I discovered how much your mindset is important, because I started to do, this power post. If you've seen the links to the power post on YouTube, I can link them in the post here below, because I started doing that before my tests and I got good grades. Not in all of them, but I proved to myself that I'm good. And then I also applied to study in London at a school for marketing and communication. And I got in. And I got in to my surprise. But at the end of my job there, something within me said, just like 2 months before I was going to move to London, something within me said, this is not what you want. And I was like, what? Who's this? This is not what you want. And I started to panic a little bit within, like, hey, we kind of made an agreement here. This is what I want. I want to go to London. but I didn't want it. What did I want? And I started to listen to audiobooks and everything. And something happened. Not good for a lot of people, but for me, it gave me a break. It's called the flu. Came in March 2019 or 2020, I don't remember. And it has a name, but I won't say it here. So I'm just going to say the flu. And then people had to work from home. And I was like, brilliant. I don't have to see anyone in the office. And I'm the only one who can go in. I'm the savior. But I was so excited because no one could be over my shoulder. And more books started also to come to me. And I remember walking beside of a river where I used to work. And I remember saying, if not anything changes now, I don't know if I want to continue. And then this flu thing came. And books came to me, and I started listening, and I also started to watch courses online. I used to watch Tony Robbins, Dean Gracio, like a lot of people. And I reached out to many of them, but didn't get any feedback. But I was like, I know now why. Because one day in October, I discovered Bob Proctor. I was lying in bed and I saw the video of Bob Proctor. And I was like, that man knows something. I don't know what it is, but I signed up for one of his free webinars. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know what it was, but I wanted to know more. So I invested in a program that he sold for $1,000 at this time. And it was called The Science of Getting Rich. And it's the best thing I ever done. And I will tell you more about that in the next episode. But I want you to think about, have you ever experienced something similar like me? Or maybe you're out there and you're kind of thinking about doing something, but you don't dare because you think everything have to be put together, or you will have to have people investing in your business before you start, or you have to know the manager to apply for the position, or maybe you want to have a different job, or maybe you want to speak up in a meeting, but your perfectionism stops you, or insecurity, or the love that you don't have for yourself yet, that you don't trust yourself yet, that you can send out that now. It doesn't need to be perfect. So let me know in the comments below, or send me a message if you don't want to kind of comment below, but I would love to hear from you. Have a beautiful day. Bye.